So I don't know about you guys, but I can't wait for the 2018 NFL Draft. And based off of what happened today on St. Patrick's Day, this stuff's about to get really interesting real quick. We're more than a month out from the draft, almost a month and a half, and you've got a team already desperate to move up big time to make sure that they get a quarterback. We haven't even got through March yet. You haven't even got through the pro days yet. This is insane and awesome at the same time. Big things popping out here in Draftland. The trade I'm talking about, of course, is the New York Jets agreeing to send the 6th overall pick in round 1, the 37th and 49th overall picks, which happen to both be in round 2, and a 2019 second round pick to the Indianapolis Colts to move up to the 3rd overall spot in round 1. That's right, to move up 3 spots in the draft, the Jets gave up 2 second-round picks this year and a second-round pick next year, along with the 6th overall pick. I mean, it goes without saying this is a huge win for the Indianapolis Colts. You know, if they still believe that Andrew Luck will come back and be Andrew Luck, then they don't need a quarterback. And regardless this year, they weren't realistically in the quarterback market. So for Chris Ballard, the general manager, if you're not in the quarterback market, there was absolutely no reason other than stubbornness and sheer stupidity to sit there at the 3rd overall pick. Market conditions indicated that it was more prudent to move down, and that's exactly what he did. He needed to do it for this team that is going under a pretty big rebuild here. He had to do it, and that's what he did. And in the process, he got significant draft pick currency for only having to move down 3 spots. To go from 3 to 6, which for the Colts doesn't make much of a difference this year because they're not in the quarterback market. They got 2 additional second-round picks this year, giving them a total of 3 second-round picks, including back-to-back picks in round 2, and then the pick at number 49 that the Jets got from the Sheldon Richardson deal, which basically means the Colts now have 4 of the top 49 picks in this draft. And you improve your positioning next year in terms of your power and your flexibility by getting a second-round pick from the Jets in 2019. I mean, this is huge for the Colts. And what it does as well, by the Jets moving up like that, the Colts can now peel back to 6 and very possibly still be able to target one of the guys that they would have taken at number 3 any damn ways. And for the right to have done that and pay these guys a little bit less by moving down from 3 to 6, you will save some space in terms of salary cap over the next couple of years because you're paying less for the 6th pick than you are the 3rd pick. You are also getting the rights to a total of 3 second-round picks that you didn't have, 2 this year and 1 next year. That's one of those ding-dong, just freaking do it type of deals. And because of what's happening here with the Jets, that could incentivize the Bills or the Cardinals or the Broncos to make a move up to number 2 where the Giants are. It could incentivize another team to trade up where the Broncos are at number 5 if the Broncos are going to be out because they believe in Case Keenum, to where we probably see a run on quarterbacks in round 1 in the top 5. You're looking at it very likely it's going to end up with quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, and maybe 5th as well. 3 to 4 quarterbacks going in the top 5, which means the Colts, who would have had to have had huge eyes on Quentin Nelson and Bradley Chubb, there's a very realistic chance that both of those guys are there when they're picking 6th, when they would have been potentially choosing between the 2 of them at pick number 3. And when you look at how this plays out for the Colts in terms of the draft this year just in general, you've got 3 second-round picks, which means if you want to get aggressive and get another impact player in round 1, you have plenty of draft pick capital to be able to do so. You could give up a second-round pick and a third-round pick, and there, Bob's your uncle, you're in the back half of round 1. If you want to go higher up into round 1, you could pop off 2 of those second-round picks and maybe a 4th or a 5th, and there you go, you're there. So if you want to get another impact player that you really, really like, you now have the draft pick capital to do so without setting yourself back significantly for this draft. It also could mean, if you just want to stay pat, because this draft I feel like is really heavy in round 2 and 3 talent, you could potentially get 3 impact players in round 2, which is just absolutely huge. Because as many stars come out of rounds 2 and 3 as they do round 1. And now the Colts have 3 picks in round 2 alone. And it could also allow for them, if they're so inclined, with teams wanting to move up within round 2, they could potentially accumulate even more draft pick capital here in 2018 or set themselves up even stronger in 2019 by peeling back. All types of options, all types of flexibility now for Chris Ballard. He could be one of the king makers in this draft as a general manager. This was a win-win-win. You've got to freaking do it move for the Colts. They did it. They got the Jets to overpay because the Jets had to overpay because it was a trade, getting a pick that would involve a quarterback. It makes sense. The Colts are massive winners here. And as far as the Jets, it is worth the risk. In order for them to move up to number 3, to me, and I could be wrong because we are talking about McCagnon and the Jets front office, but I'm going to give some benefit of the doubt. I'm going to assume some positive intent here. And that's a big assumption. That they most likely have similar grades on at least 3 of the quarterbacks, to where they're viewing it like 2004 with Eli, Big Ben, and Phillip Rivers, that if they don't end up with 2 of them, they'll feel really good about the 3rd one because they had pretty much the same grade on them. Because to move up to number 3, you would have to say that would feel like it need to be at least somewhat true. For the Jets, it's also a win because, yes, you gave up 2 second-round picks this year and a second-round pick next year, but you did not have to give up anything more, and you did not have to give up your first-round pick next year. To be able to make that move up from 6, where you might have missed out on the quarterback you want, to number 3, where you're at least in striking range of the quarterback or quarterbacks you want, like, or desire, feels like a pretty good get for the Jets. And for the Jets, you look at how early they struck here. This is, to me, an example of trying to set the market yourself before somebody else does. Worrying about the Bills, knowing they've already moved up from 21 to 12. Why the hell would they do that? Well, we all know why they would do that. So you have to be careful because the Bills had even more draft pick capital to play with. They could have offered the Colts more to get up to number 3. And for the Jets, it could have been a situation where they're like, we've got to get up to number 3 now before the Bills jump us to 3 or 2 or potentially number 1. Who knows? But at least number 2 where the Giants are. We've got to strike and, if anything, drive the price up for them and make them think about it and get ourselves closer to number 2 if we need to. And the Jets were still able to keep 3rd and 4th rounders this year. And to me, with where they're at now at number 3, it's still within the wheelhouse in the realm of possibilities that if all else breaks down and they are really scared about the Giants taking a quarterback at number 2, they are close enough and still have just enough picks to make it happen where they can move up from 3 to 2 and still be able to keep that first-round pick in 2019. So, yes, it's a big price for the Jets to pay, and they paid the price early. But if they had waited, they could have lost out or had to pay a whole lot more. So at least they got to set the terms. They got to set the market conditions based off of the Colts' asking price. It feels like this is the smart move, the right move. It feels crazy to say that when you talk about the Jets. But with the Bills in play and all the power that they have in terms of their draft picks in 2018, you worry about how much they would have had to give up to go from 12 to 2 or 3, and then what that would have meant for if the Bills went from 12 to 3, what does that mean for the Jets if they're trying to go to 6 to 2? They would have had to, at that point in time, given up that first-round pick in 2019. Now, when you're talking about trading 3 to 2 with the Giants, with only having to make that one leap up instead of having to talk about 4, you're no longer going to necessarily have to give up that 2019 first-round pick. And ultimately, for the Jets' price and what they paid, if they get that QB and they are right, that price won't matter. That price is not prohibitive. They could have paid it 10 times over and been proud of it. Now, there's still the question of why so early in the process you would trade up to number 3. Seems like a pretty big reach to say 3 quarterbacks have pretty close to the same grade. Or if you said that's our first step to get up, what happens if you're not able to get up and you targeted one of the 2 guys and then 1 or 2 guys and they go 1 and 2, then you lose out. And then you're taking a consolation prize. Was it worth trading up at that point in time? It's a fair question. You're also talking about the same general manager, same front office, same scouting department that decided Christian Hackenberg was worth the second-round pick in 2016. So it's one thing to execute in terms of the strategy to get up in the draft. It's the more important thing of once you get into that position, executing by evaluating properly and drafting the right guy. And let's not put the cart before the horse here. We are talking about the Jets, and that is a big reach to assume that they will automatically get it right. See Christian Hackenberg. That said, though, Jets fans, you can at least rest easy and know that at this point in time, unless McCagnon is the biggest idiot in the world, that they traded up to get a quarterback. So for the first time since 2009, your team is destined to pick an offensive player in round one. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Until you realize the last time that they made a big, massive move up the draft board like this was in 2009, and that was to move up from, 17 to number 5, to take Mark Sanchez! The Sanchez! Senor Butt Fumble himself! So don't count all your chickens before they hatched. But for the Jets, if they get it right, and that's the big if here, they've made the move, now do they get it right? If they get it right, we'll look at this organization in an entirely different way for the next 10 to 15 years. But if they don't get it right, they will overtake the Cleveland Browns as the skid marks of the National Football League. It's worth the risk, it's worth the price, it's worth the gamble for the Jets. Now it comes down to execution in the evaluation and the selection. And for the Colts and your fans, celebrate, because you won pretty big with this one.